Good evening. Welcome to Community Speaks, a new show brought to you by the Roxbury Jamaica Plain Substance Use Coalition. We are a community-driven group inspiring and mobilizing individuals, families, and communities to decrease the impact of substance use in our neighborhoods. My name is Deborah Milbauer, and I am the coalition coordinator for the overdose prevention project called MassCALL2. On Community Speaks, we will discuss the truths and myths about substance use in our community. You will hear from members in your community who work every day to do something about this issue. Upcoming programs will focus on youth, how race and poverty influence what is happening in our community, and also upcoming programs that will help you find local providers who can help. Please join us the second and fourth Thursday of every month. Today, we will be talking about opioid overdose prevention. I am the coordinator of the coalition's MassCALL2 program, which is opioid overdose prevention. And currently in the state of Massachusetts, there is actually an opioid overdose epidemic, unfortunately. There are now more fatal opioid overdoses than there are car accident fatalities, which means more people die now from opioid overdose than from car accidents. And this is relatively new, and it's alarming. In Massachusetts, 2 people a day, approximately, die from an opioid overdose. So the Department of Public Health funded about 16 communities throughout Massachusetts to tackle local opioid overdose prevention. Each community came up with their own local strategies to address the issues in their neighborhoods. So it was not a one-size-fits-all strategy. And in Boston, there were 4 substance use coalitions that received funding. So there are 4 coalitions working on opioid overdose prevention in Boston. Roxbury Jamaica Plain is one coalition, Charlestown is another, South Boston, and the South End. So our coalition worked on 3 different strategies, and today we're going to introduce you to folks who are going to tell us about 2 of those 3 strategies. Our third strategy, which we're not going to talk about today, was the 911 task force, which addressed issues of people's fear of calling 911. And that had to do with police training, and we're very excited about that, and we'll talk more in depth about that on a future program. So today, we have 3 very special guests for the first half of the show. We are going to be speaking with Sarah Mackin from AHOPE of the Boston Public Health Commission. And in the second half of our show, we have Tom Scott from MORE, Massachusetts Organization for Addiction Recovery. And we have John Dolan from the Suffolk County House of Correction, also known as South Bay. So without further ado, I would like to introduce our very first guest, Sarah Mackin. We are so happy to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
And honored for you to be involved in our project. So could you just start off by telling us why opioid overdose prevention? What does it matter? Why is it relevant now, and why is it important to even tackle as an issue?
It's a little bit how you sort of just described it. I mean, the statistics that you threw out there, those are pretty staggering. 2 people every day in our state dying from a preventable situation. So an opiate overdose is something that can be prevented, both by recognizing the signs, knowing how to respond, and having a medication called Narcan, which I'll talk about in a second. It's a prescient issue. It's not just in Massachusetts where people are dying from opiate overdoses. It's also a nationwide issue. As of fall 2011, now, like you said, people are dying at a higher rate from opiate overdoses than they are from motor vehicle accidents. That, to me, that's a public health crisis, is the way that you said it.
Yeah. What's an opioid? Could you just quickly say
Sure.
that?
So, and sorry, and we kind of throw around these terminologies as public health professionals. So an opiate would be something like heroin or Dilaudid, Oxycontin, oxycodone, morphine, anything that's derived from the opium plant.
Any street names people people would recognize?
I mean, dope is the big one, I guess. I don't want to sit up here and throw out too many street names because I'm probably going to make a fool of myself.
Okay. And why is opioid overdose prevention relevant to harm reduction?
In terms of opiate overdose, coming from a perspective where harm reduction is any positive change is something that we want to see in folks who are doing harm to themselves. I'm in a situation where in my program, for example, people come in to access services, whether it be clean syringes, or they need a detox referral, or they need some other situation that there and now is a pressing issue for them. Opiate overdose is something that we're going to bring up. We're going to say, hey, listen, what are you doing to protect yourself? And there are various ways that we can engage with people from a harm reduction perspective. I'm not going to sit here and tell you. So if you come into my program, and you're my client, or a client that accesses our program, I'm not going to say, you need to do X, Y, and Z. Because, I mean, as human beings, our brains shut off automatically when someone engages with us in that way. So I'm going to say, what are you willing to do? You know, what are you willing to do to protect yourself, either from HIV or, in this case, opiate overdose? Are you willing to, think about the drugs that you're mixing? For example, benzos and heroin is something that is now a huge issue in our communities where people are mixing these two drugs and they're overdosing at a much higher rate.
So it sounds like the needle exchange and harm reduction work you do, which is to keep people safe until they can get to a better place, fits nicely with the overdose prevention, which is also about keeping people safe and alive until they can get to a better place. So that's great. And the coalition has had the privilege and the honor of working with AHOPE, which is a program, as I said earlier, of the Boston Public Health Commission, and they've been a fantastic partner on our strategy called the PDI, the peer-driven intervention. So I was wondering, Sarah, if you could tell us a little bit about what the PDI is and what it looks like and how it works and all of that.
Sure. So the PDI, the peer-driven intervention, it's not a new intervention. It's something that came out of the early day in HIV, where we were taking folks who were knowledgeable about HIV, had HIV as peers, and they were going out and educating other peers, other people who were, that one-to-one interaction. What are the risks of HIV? How can you protect yourself? And we've seen that this is an extremely effective model. We've seen that people's risk behaviors go down. People are putting themselves in less risky situations. Right. In terms of the peer-driven intervention at AHOPE, or through the coalition, but we house it and we have people come in and engage in this intervention. An individual will come in and they'll take a test, and then after taking that test, it has 10 questions. A lot of the questions are centered around concomitant use with benzos and overdose, and also.
So concomitant means mixing.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Okay.
So mixing, different drugs, which puts people at risk for overdose, which is something I already mentioned, and other issues of how to assess the signs of an overdose, how to respond in case of an overdose, and they'll take that quiz and then go on to 3 of their peers with coupons. They'll then educate those 3 peers. Those 3 peers will come back to AHOPE and take that test. They'll get 3 coupons, et cetera, and so on. So it's sort of like the most positive example of a Ponzi scheme that you could think of.
So basically, it's folks teaching each other overdose prevention as opposed to sort of talking head providers telling people about overdose prevention. It's folks on the street teaching each other overdose prevention. Right.
And in terms of the client provider model, when this PDI or the peer-driven interventions came out in the early day of HIV, I mean, we're seeing that these peers are able to access deeper and deeper into social networks that us as providers we wouldn't be able to reach those folks, and bringing them in. And that's at the point of intervention where we can bring them into other services that they may need or referrals and so forth.
Oh, that's great. So they are taught by someone else, and they come in and they take this 10-question test about opioid overdose prevention. Right. And if they pass, then they get 3 coupons.
They get 3 coupons.
And then they go out and teach 3 other people.
Right.
And then those folks will then come in.
Right, and each one takes the same test of the 10 questions.
Okay, and then if they pass the test, they become a peer educator.
Correct.
So that's why it's called a peer-driven intervention.
Exactly.
Got it, okay. Right. All right, and can you tell us a little bit about Narcan?
Sure. So Narcan is also wrapped up into the peer-driven intervention. So when someone comes in to take this quiz or they're coming in with their coupons, we'll also offer them Narcan or naloxone. Narcan is sort of the common name for, it's an antidote to an opiate overdose. So what it does is it's an opiate blocker. So someone's overdosing from, say, heroin or OxyContin, you can administer Narcan and it will give you a window period. It's not a magic bullet, which is something we need to tell people when we're handing out this medication. It gives people a window period. It lifts say, opioids off of the brain so that someone can start breathing again. Because
so overdose is about losing your ability to breathe.
in the case of an
Narcan,
opiate, yeah.
Yeah, opioid overdose, and Narcan allows you to breathe again.
Exactly.
And so how can somebody get trained and get some of this Narcan if they're worried about a loved one in their own home or someone they know?
AHOPE has Narcan available, and there are sites all over Massachusetts where people can go in, and thousands of people have been trained. And so, coming out of 2006, where we didn't have this method of reversing an overdose, as opposed to now, when we're able to train friends and family and neighbors, and people who are peers, people who are active users, because those are the ones who are reversing the overdoses. This is an incredible intervention. It's a life-saving intervention. And like I said, no one needs to ever die again from an opiate overdose. It's about education, assessing the signs, and having the tools to sort of intervene in that life-saving moment.
Sarah, thank you so much for sharing that important information with us. We really hope you'll come back on a future show and we could talk more about it. Great. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Bones sinking like stones, all that we fall for. Homes, places we've grown, all of us are done for. And we live in a beautiful world. Yeah, we do, yeah, we do. We live in a beautiful world. Bones sinking like stones, all that we fall for. Places we've grown, all of us are done for. And we live in a beautiful world. Yeah, we do, yeah, we do. We live in a beautiful somebody to lean on.
Hi, welcome back. My name is Deborah Milbauer, and you are watching Community Speaks, hosted by the Roxbury Jamaica Plain Substance Use Coalition, a brand new show. And we just finished speaking with Sarah Mackin of AHOPE, telling us about the overdose prevention project that they're working on with peers who teach each other overdose prevention. And I'm very honored and thrilled to have two guests here with me today who are partnering with the coalition on a prison-based overdose prevention project. So we have John Dolan of the Suffolk County House of Corrections, otherwise known as South Bay. And we have Tom Scott from MORE, the Massachusetts Organization for Addiction Recovery. So we are so happy to have both of you here today. And I wanted to start with John first. Thank you for being here. It's really very special for us to visit with you on the outside. We do a lot of visiting with you on the inside, but we're really happy that you are outside today. Could you tell us a little bit about why opioid overdose prevention in the prison? Why even do this in the prison?
We were looking over the surveys that you come in with from the Department of Public Health, and we looked at them, and we'd already known that there was a huge opiate problem. What we really stood out is that 20% of those people had overdosed in our population because they're at a high risk because their tolerance has changed once they leave. Their body no longer can handle the same amount of opiates as it did prior to coming in. And the fact that 39% of them have witnessed an overdose and didn't know what to do. So we took that and we used what Sarah talked about earlier as the peer model that you use for HIV, and we attached it to the opiate peer-driven model that we're using now, and we're teaching inmates to actually teach other inmates and people from the outside about practical steps to take to reverse an opiate overdose using Narcan.
So while they're incarcerated, you're teaching them opioid overdose, and then they become a peer educator, and then they teach each other.
Right. We have a 6-week course that we teach them give them all the information around the Narcan, the opiate overdose prevention program. Then we have a graduation, and then we turn them over to you to be certified for Narcan at AHOPE. And it's a win-win. They get the information, they pass it on not only to themselves, their family, they can use it in the community. It's good for their self-esteem, and it's certainly useful information for people re-entering the communities.
So you've had about to have 6 completed cycles of training. So you did the first 6 or 8 week cycle, and you have about 30 people that go through
We have 30, around 30, an average of 31. I think there's 285 that have already gone through, approximately that, and it's got a real good buzz around the prison, and people want to get involved in it. It's supported by people on the outside, which is huge, and it's good information, and it's real, because the people that talk, we've actually had 3 people that have actually graduated, as you know, that have died, and that's just in that one block. So I mean,
and
really,
a block means the unit,
the unit that we actually
unit.
do it in,
Yeah.
right? And that really hits home with these guys when we talk about that, because it's more meaningful, and these guys actually live that life, so it's good stuff.
It's really incredible, and the added bonus is that there's an audience of inmates, right? Can you tell us about that?
We have the rest of the unit that are not involved in it that these guys actually present to, and we do it with 2 different units. We do it with the reentry unit, the guys that are going to be leaving first, and we do it with the substance abuse units, the people that are actually in the unit, and they get the information. Like I said, once we plant the seed, they pollinate, you know, and that's what we hope to do, and it's been working so far.
Well, I have to say the graduations I've attended are so moving, because these are folks in scrubs who are not free, and they go through this peer educator program, and they come out with these incredible skills, and then the graduation ceremonies that we attend, we bear witness to them presenting to an audience of their peers, other incarcerated folks, and they teach them. And we, as the talking heads, don't do the teaching anymore. They teach each other, and it's been honestly one of the most incredible and emotional things I've ever witnessed in my work in terms of the overdose prevention. It's very special, and I'm thrilled that you all have taken this on rather than sort of outsiders coming in to do it. So that's been very exciting for us. And I want to turn to Tom Scott now, who is with MORE, as I said, and he's really been a part of this project for 4 years now, since the beginning of it, working as an outsider going in. And I was wondering if you could just talk a little bit about what your experience has been in the process, and what it looked like before and what it is now.
Sure. As you said, it's been a long process getting this program off the ground. And I think initially, way back when, we really spent a lot of time building relationships with people at the South Bay Correctional Center. And that work that we did at that point has really paid off, because we've developed a great partnership with John and many of the other folks at the correction center. And it's really been worthwhile. And I think the staff there have been very receptive to the work that we've been doing and are grateful. One of the other pieces of this is we work with people post-release also. We try to connect people who go through the peer education with services once they get out. John mentioned that they go to AHOPE. We also give them a membership in MORE, which is a recovery organization, membership-based recovery organization. And with their membership, they can attend many of the events that we have, educational events and other events across the state and around the city. And they also speak at AHOPE at the Boston Public Health Commission and are given a very small stipend for their efforts. So there is a connection from their time in the institution following their discharge to the community that we've really, that's been kind of our role in coordinating the service with the JP Roxbury Coalition.
Right. And I have to say, I've seen a few of the inmates who are released, and they'll walk across the street and check in at AHOPE and enroll in Narcan, and then schedule a speaking gig at the Men's Health and Recovery Program upstairs. And I've attended a couple of those speaking gigs, and they're phenomenal. Last time I saw them, they were in scrubs, and then they're speaking in front of a group of other men in early recovery, and they've got a tie and a suit, and they just really, it's a powerful experience to watch the transition from the inside to the outside.
And we've also seen people at more events at our Boston Public Policy Forum. A person who had been a peer educator was there and participating in the forum and speaking with representatives and other people from policymakers across the state that were participating.
So somebody we had met while he was incarcerated, then he was released, and we met him at one of the events that Moore hosted. That was an amazing moment as well.
It was.
It's a very special project, all of this. And what about the partnership with the Suffolk County House of Corrections? Can you say something about that?
Sure. As I said, it was a process of building that partnership, and we're very fortunate that we had John Dolan and many other administrative folks at South Bay. And it's been amazing, the kind of support that we've got, not only from John and the direct care staff, but also from deputy superintendents and other people throughout the institution have been very gracious and helpful as we've gone through this process. So I have been amazed at the partnership.
Yes, and grateful to their investment in the health of the inmates. I think they're really invested, and they want to make sure the higher ups. I mean, John and his partner in crime, so to speak, Sean Carlson, have been amazing facilitating this project, but the higher administration has been very invested. We have run out of time, but I hope you'll come back and talk more about this so we could talk more in detail and maybe bring back somebody who's graduated, been released, and become a peer educator. So that would be really great to have you back. I really want to thank Sarah and both of you, Tom and John, for coming today. You can continue to watch this show, which will have different topics every week. The second and fourth Thursday of every month at 9 p.m., and you will meet more members of the Roxbury JP Substance Use Coalition and the work that we're doing. If you want to get involved, you can come to our coalition meetings. They're open to anyone. We meet the first Tuesday of every month from 10 to 12 at Bromley Heath. And if you want more information, go to our website, which is www.roxjpcoalition.org or roxburyjpcoalition.org. You can also email us at info@roxburyjpcoalition.org, or go to the website and you'll get the email address. Our coalition coordinator is Chioma Naji, and she will get back to you. We are so grateful that you tuned in today. And our next talk show will talk more about the success of the coalition in working with overdose prevention and active users and the police department and prisoners from Suffolk County. So we're so grateful, and we will see you soon.